Oh, God bless you. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Today is the Sabbath, so Deacon Pat and I are on a rest. We're resting from our many things we do in a day. We're committers, and we're resting from our Lent because it's a Easter, little Easter, and we're resting from the big season we just left and are entering into a season of like restoration and peace. We did our Lent. We did our Lent. This will be on Lent. Did our Lent before, 40 days before Lent started. What do you think, Pat? How are you doing on your Lent?
Yeah, I agree. It's been kind of a Lenten year for us. So
I Lent 2 years, but who's counting?
yeah.
Mom came to live with us. She was 97 years old. She was adorable to Pat, and she was my mother to me. So we had a Lenten year. We had to do things that we thought we'd never do again. But just like when you have a newborn, we didn't have to diaper her. Thank God for that.
Mm-hmm.
We had to do things like share a bathroom, Pat and I, so that and take numbers for doing showers. These were very big trials to me. As I look back and I think, well, what was I thinking? But however, a trial to one person, like I love red lights, but most people get upset on those, isn't a trial to someone else. So tell a little about our Lenten before and our Lenten now.
Well, we obviously were limited in what we could do in terms of travel and making sure that Ellen's mom was taken care of.
Yep.
But so you could say we were doing a lot of almsgiving in a sense in terms of our time, sometimes talent and treasure, and fasting from things that sometimes food that we would normally like to eat. And
so funny, right? So funny to look back. My mom was called a special needs case. She had a special diet, and she was allergic to many things at different times. Some days she was allergic to things like mushrooms. Other times she was allergic to something like she couldn't eat chicken, and then she could eat pasta, and she was Italian. But the funny part about it was I go to Pat, and this is when I really realized we were doing our sanctification with her. And I said, Pat, all we need to do is feed her and fellowship. And she's good. She's 97. She watches TV a lot. She calls people on the phone. Mm-hmm. But if we just eat with her, because it wasn't just feed her, it was eat with her like Italian style and talk around the table. And that is now my favorite thing to do. And so if we just do that, we'll be good. And then as soon as we got that down pat, now she can't eat noodles. She can't eat chicken. This she can eat. And then she'd go, nope, now I can't eat. We don't know if she used to watch the movie Everyone Loves Raymond, which she loved
the show.
Yes, every day, all day long. And she memorized, I'm positive, she memorized the lines from Marie. And then she used them against us. I had wind of some of those shows, I could tell, but this is the sad part. She wasn't always playing the role. Sometimes she was really actually telling the truth and living her life. So it is tough to be 97. That is tough to watch a 97-year-old. And one thing we learned through our trial, and not that it was a trial for Pat, because it really wasn't. It was like a delight for him. But is that you should plan ahead for when you get old. Like she was 97, she had lived at her home in Aiken, South Carolina, at Hounds Lake for almost all her, well, not all her adult life, but for pretty much for her life without children. And then she ended up having to think of what to do when she was older. She did have bladder cancer, though, to be fair, but she wasn't really sickly, and so she had to think ahead. And we have already thought ahead. I thought ahead more than Pat. I thought when I get old, in a year or 2 or 3, I will be happy as I can be to be either in a carriage house behind a child or near a child, but not in the same home. That's what I decided. Hey, figure it out for yourself. Pat's a deacon and a doctor. He knows that growing old gracefully is tough. And with the Catholics, there's a lot of different procedures that other people don't have to do because they don't know they're supposed to. So you teach a class called
End of Life Care. Yeah, so we don't want to minimize, like some of you out there probably have really gone through much more difficult situations.
Yes.
In fact, at Ellen's mom's funeral, a gentleman was talking about taking care of a family member who has really bad Alzheimer's, and then another family member who broke a hip and has significant health problems. So and that's a real struggle, and it's difficult. And one of the things that I, as a doctor, always had to do was to encourage caregivers to take care of themselves, because many times they were the only caregiver, and if they didn't take care of themselves, then there'd be nobody to take care of their loved one.
And see, that's 77, and I'm 70 years old, so I would always say to my mom, we're the elderly watching the elderly. The elderly watch the elderly got tiring, because the fact is we already had raised 8 children, and we had already raised other people in the family that we had a grandchild that I helped care for a couple of years. My daughter had to work, and there was so much on our plate that we thought the best thing we had to do was say take a number, and Mom didn't understand. But the good news was Mom got to know her grandchildren, which she hadn't been living near them,
right.
And she was very excited how they embraced her. They just thought she was the best thing ever. They liked her jokes, her old stories.
And to put that in perspective, is she really had not had a whole lot of interaction with her grandchildren and great-grandchildren, except for my youngest
that's true.
son, who would make the effort to go from Augusta. It's about a half-hour journey, a half-hour to 45 minutes, and spend Sunday dinners with Ellen's mom.
And we had been out of town we cut around the 2-year program. We go to Florida. We move back to Georgia. We go to Florida. Pat doesn't like the game. So Pat, tell about a little more about end of life. You do have to. You can't just say, well, this isn't my gift, which I did say often. This is not my gift. I do little people like. I don't even do newborns. I like the little people that talk and say things funny like.
Right, and we, fortunately, I think we were able to have 2 parents who died in our home.
That's right.
And 1 parent who died at home. So Ellen's father passed away in a hospice care situation. He was well taken care of there, even though his permanent coma came about through hospital error. But yeah, we have to always be loving and always care for human beings, because every human being is made in the likeness of Jesus, and until they die, they should be treated with dignity and cared for. And so, and that can be a real challenge, especially with Alzheimer's patients, who can become hostile and very, very difficult to take care of. There are things in medications and things that can make it more pleasant in terms of trying to take care of them. But it can wear on a family, especially if there's only one caregiver. And
we took Pat's advice, though, the month of January. I said we have to have the month of January off, and so to our pleasure and delight, and people out as well, we went to 3 Christmas parties in our neighborhood area, because almost our children live in our area. And then we went back down to Florida and had 2 more Christmas parties. Full family almost came out, and that was a lot of people. And then we went on a little 2-week journey to just retreat and finish up work like we do. We retreat and just be together. Yeah. And I thought, how timely, looking back, how timely was that? Because we came back January, I think it was 18th or 20th, because Mom had a little dentist appointment. And then Mom died February 5th, 8th. She died peacefully and unexpectedly. But it did take us for a ride. We just did not know how. We did not sense. I'm Pat's the doctor. We didn't sense she's dying. She was still herself the whole way through, and that, I think it was God's grace on us not to know. And then after she died, we have been spending a lot of time this month, as you don't see me on air, and you don't see me on air because we've been trying to get loose ends tied up. When you have a person like 2 roommates, we have a son also lives with us, live with you full time for a couple of years, you don't always get done the things you're thinking you're going to get done. So we've been catching up, but I don't know, it was pretty peaceful for a doctor to witness, right? Pretty peaceful. And she was not a really strong believer at all. She's like a churchgoer, and she went down the back pew in Aiken, just to talk to all the other friends of hers from New York. It was just comical, right? What are you saying?
Right, but the good news is we had discussions
Oh, that's true.
about her funeral, but at the same time, there are in the church, you can't just do whatever you want if you want to have a funeral mass.
Mm-hmm.
You have a lot more flexibility for a wake, and in her case, she did not want a wake. She wanted to have a funeral mass and a dinner for family in her honor, all in the same day.
Mm-hmm.
But the family came together and it got arranged. Julie, her youngest daughter, arranged the meal, and the Church of the Most Holy Trinity, and Father Jacob at Holy Trinity was very accommodating and worked with us, and things went smoothly. And
we had 2 singers.
We had a reception right after the funeral, and so it was peaceful.
And our daughter Terrellyn made the programs with Pat, and that was a lot of work and posters. And Pat and I handled all the setup, cleanup. It was like a family thing. We went to the funeral home. It seemed to work together. And you know, when you have a bad situation happen in your life that you didn't expect, one man told me my mom was a daughter 20, and I actually believed my oldest. I better pace myself here, get that little vacation. But when you have that happen, the grace in a large family is seen. No one did nothing. Everyone did something. I always said about America, USA, wake up. You know, everyone does something. So everybody does their part. One son, Sean, read, and one daughter, Amanda, read. In the Catholic Church, you read the scriptures, as you know, at the Mass. And then one daughter shared. Well, she actually is a baby girl who I didn't know she was a speaker until years later that she was in her career. And she was phenomenal. Every eye was teared up, and there really wasn't enough Kleenex to go around. And then my favorite part of the memories of Mom dying in our Lenten journey of sanctification was that Mark Nadell was a friend of my brother in high school, and it also was my mom's best friend, Lila, from Louisville, Georgia. So shout out Louisville and Mark Nadell and his wife, Sonia. And Mark sat next to me at the church because that's where they sit when they're in a wheelchair. And he's such a statement of the grace that God can put on a life. And we are blessed that he got the Mass, even though it wasn't his religion. He's Jewish, and that he understood that this is traditions from his faith, you know. And I just love that memory. Do you love that?
Yeah. Yes, I told him when he said that absolutely he's correct, that our roots go back to worship in the Jewish tradition, and you can see very much aspects of that in the Catholic Mass, because the original church were Jews who believed Jesus was the Messiah, and were praying and instituted the Eucharist and Holy Communion into the Jewish traditions. And
take my steps for us on the air.
So I sent Mark a couple of articles that went through the history and explained a lot of our traditions and what we call sacred tradition in the celebration of the Mass since the early church and the church fathers with the disciples and the apostles. So I hope he enjoyed that, and anybody who's interested, if you look it up, you can find articles that explain what we do in the Mass that go back thousands of years, ultimately, much of it. But it's obviously different in that we believe Jesus was the Messiah, and we celebrate that.
People came from all over too for Mom, right? I mean,
Yes.
They did, like my cousin Susan came, which was the only representative of the cousins, of the 25 cousins. We were glad to see her, and Johnny, our nephew from Atlanta. And unfortunately, my 2 brothers didn't make the part of the spiritual part, the Mass. But when Johnny, he's such a trooper, when we got to the reception, my brother Alan, I gave him a hug. He said, I'm ill. And he had like a handkerchief over his face. And it ended up being that he had
very high blood sugar. So he's a diabetic and wasn't really taking as good a care of himself as he should have. But anyway,
he made it.
Had to go to the hospital, but he's okay.
And Johnny took him. I thought, wow, what a commendable son. He had missed the reception part, and he had a flat tire, so he missed the spiritual part, and he ended up making it to the family gathering. The family gathering was precious. It was everyone and their children, because it was a lot of people in just our immediate family. That's all we had was immediate. And the one little girl is so sweet, Brooklyn. She says to me, "Man, you could sit here near me." And I go, "Wow, thank you," because you know what? I never get to sit near Brooklyn. She sits near her mom or dad. And then she says, "Wait a minute, Nana. Maggie's going to sit near me, the baby cousin." And I go, "Okay, it's okay. It's okay. I'm fine with that." It's just the love of a family. And we get on air to do, and this is Deaconing Dear with Ellen Mongan and Pat Mongan, Deacon Pat, my Deacon Dear. But I forgot to say that at the beginning. When you have the joy in hindsight of watching your family, like say you're out there and you're like a little family, you're like, I just got pregnant with my firstborn and I just have this desire to have a large family. Keep that desire in your heart, because the fruit isn't always in right away. It's a lot of work. Moms, we know that, and dads, now that help the moms in a different way than in our generation. I see the baby strapped to your breast when you go to the grocery store, pushing that cart with maybe a 2-year-old in the cart, and I'm like, woo. Our generation did not do that. Of course, Pat worked very, very hard as a doctor, and I worked in the home. But don't give up that desire. We know one couple, the Concrites, every time they would pray, is our quiver full, or do we be open to children every month? And I think that was a commendable way to pray it through. Pat and I never considered, because I wasn't a fan of, I just...
Natural family planning.
Exactly. So I just say I'm open to life. It was easier for me, and no way. I'm not a doctor, like Lord. So anyways, I'm very grateful. Pat knows I'm grateful, because as we know, many times I tell the story of when I was first married, with a month-long honeymoon, and then we came back. We moved to Gainesville, Florida, and then I was pregnant with a toddler, and I had never even bathed that. And I was like every day in my bathing suit, which was in those days, Florida clothes. I'd lay my little blue raft and just say, "This is the life." And I really thought it was the life. My little blue raft, that's why my room is blue. Just remind me that the life is a family, full and energetic, working together and building life together. What would this world be without family? God first and family second. That's always my motto. And that those of you who do have the question mark in your mind about so many things that are going to come up politically about abortion, you are missing such a joy that you haven't even conceived. I had no idea that I would have a joy in motherhood. I was so self-centered when I met my husband. I was a stewardess, and I was on the plane. I was meeting people and having fun. And I was just having the time of my life. And then I had no idea, because babysitting wasn't ever happening in my life. To wake up and say I wake up every hour because my baby needs a nurse and I'm anorexic. I think I did survive the 7 children or 8. I didn't, but to be honest, it was a lot of work. See, so right. I would never have known had I not taken that step and said, this is going to be great. And it was great. My toddler was my firstborn. He was full of life, and I'm full of life. And we were active all day long, and I used it as my workout all day long, me and Tyler, just throwing balls or catching balls or kicking balls. All my kids are athletic. Thank the Lord. I was a ballerina, so I could fake it with a plie. But what do you think about someone listening out there and thinking, that's your sanctification too? Lent is a time of sanctification, and the large family itself is a sanctification of not what you want, but what they need.
And certainly we agree that
we can agree, honey.
Believe that having a big family helps us to be less selfish and self-centered.
See, surely, right? Even in your old age, because they don't go away after you birth a large family, and then they marry the desire of their heart, the man of their dreams, or the woman that just took their breath away. Then they bring home grandchildren, and in fact, Pat wanted to make a short video today because we're going to Sunday dinner, and that's a tradition in our home. We have, I think, 2 kids in the neighborhood now, and 4 in Augusta, I think, but not far. And we go to Sunday dinner every Sunday at Charity's house, because she has a bigger den. That was Pat's plan behind the house, this smaller den. But not really. Never. We love hosting too, but we don't. She hosts way, way more than us. So that's another joy. But if you don't put the time into building a family,
right, and your relationships with your kids
and your spouse, because you don't put time in, there's always something that could be ahead of making the sacrifice to help someone move in, or making the sacrifice to help someone watch their babies while they go out of town with their hubby. There's going to always be something that comes the way. Your mentality has to be this: what can I do to bless you or serve you?
So this is one of the legacies of Eleanor Manfredi.
What is it?
You and I and our family. That's a big legacy in terms of a family that we have disagreements, but we are family.
We're family.
And,
I disagree right now because I didn't notice. Can we have you fun on the air? Wait, let's do it 5 more minutes though, baby, because I want to close it out with saying this. What is your Lent like this year? And like, since Pat and I had such a hard pre-Lent with 2 years of sacrificial love on my part and love on Pat's part, of like you would thought, but can I go to a place where they thought it was his mother?
One thing I want
to
mention to people who might be watching is one of the beauties of our times, our technological times, is that, and think about this, if you lose a loved one and families spread around the country, the funeral masses or even funeral services can be live streamed.
Oh, that was a blessing.
And
too.
Holy Trinity was very accommodating, and they live streamed Eleanor's funeral mass, and we had our son and daughter-in-law Tomoko in Japan were able to view the funeral. So, and other people around the country who travel may have been difficult for them, or you may even have family members who are housebound who really want to be able to participate, and that's a way that they can participate.
That's a very good point. And Pat worked that out for them, and we had the kid afterwards for the family bonding. The kids came over and got some clothes that she had and divvied up clothes, and then there was the jewelry. Mom loved jewelry and furs, so at the funeral we actually did wear furs that were fake because Mom loved fake and things were expensive. And the jewelry, we all looked like Italian from New York people. It was so cute. But I want to say one more thing, honey. Then we're going to say what the finishing line is about: sanctification and Lent. And when you least expect it, God is changing you in a way you didn't want Him to be like messing with. We liked our life the way it was. Just the two of us had extra roommates that were children. But Catholic Mom is where I write most of the time in Southern Cross when they give me my articles. Okay. And this month, I decided to write an article. We were having Dr. Ray on the show, so I said, I'll be writing on Dr. Ray. I'm going to interview him.
Ray Guarendi.
But he, it didn't work out because God put on my heart another article, and I wrote about my mom. And it's a fantastic article of faith. So if you have a mom or a child that's not in the faith, that's running away from God, you know what? He's the hound of heaven. But read the article. There's also a little video in there. And after you watch the video and read the article at CatholicMom.com, you'll be saying, Ellen Mongan, you'll be saying, yeah, that lady she was really our sanctification and funny. And everyone loves Raymond. And everyone loved my mom. I mean, everyone, my friends wanted to be my mom. There's also an article in around, if you just Google my name, Ellen Mongan, and the Unstoppable Mom, it's another article about her. She probably, when she gets to heaven, she's probably famous. There she is. There she goes. She doesn't come in. She comes in quietly and shy, but when you listen to her, she had a lot to say. And Pat and her were like, what's it called? They were like sister and brother in a way, because they would pick on each other in a good way, and then I would always go, y'all, you're being negative. So what do we just close it off with, honey? And we want to make sure they know how to get a hold of us. Pat and I would like to do marriage conferences around the country. We'd like to speak on marriage and gifts, and we'd like to speak on really family life, because we know it's an adventure, and it's that whole book that Dynamic Catholic wrote, Matthew Kelly, life is sometimes messy. And you don't plan it out like a puzzle piece and say this one fits here and that one fits there. Right. You just have to wake up every morning with a desire in your heart to say, Lord, here I am. I came to serve you today. Having your own plan is a good thing, but being willing to alter it and put it backwards is another way that God works in our hearts to make us.
So I was just going to throw out a challenge, because God has been challenging me with this.
Okay.
And what were the 2 great commandments, honey?
To love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, all thy soul, all thy mind, and all thy strength. And the second is like that, to love your neighbor as yourself.
And so I've been really thinking hard about loving God and loving God that way. It's impossible.
See? At one time he used to
So
think
the
it was
only
attainable.
way-
He's come a long way from attainable to impossible. Those both start with a vowel, but
Yeah.
they're so earth apart.
So I throw out that challenge. Are you really doing that? Doing Lent, Easter, Christmas, each day? And you know, as James says, anybody who says they're not sinning is a liar.
Mm-hmm.
So we know if we're sinning, we're not really loving God the way he wants us to. And there are very few saints that I have read about who I could say truly I believe they did love that way. I tend to think of Saint Therese, the little flower.
Yes.
But so just in terms of thinking about how much grace we need from God to be able to do that each and every day.
And I want to say this. Pat and I are the opposite couples. That means if he says black, I say blue, black, blue, black. If I say right, he says
white.
left. So
Red, blue?
my Lenten was from the Holy Spirit in my heart was to say, because God knew I was empty. There's a lot of sacrifices when you have, become empty nesters and you have an extra person that needs a lot of attention. So she didn't really need any physical care till the end, but attention. And God said, this is what I want you to do for Lent. And I told a lot of people when Lent started, let Jesus love you. Like sit in your prayer closet. Don't have an agenda or intercessions. Don't have like lots of words. Let him just love you and say, here I am.
Well, that fits.
Does it? Because yours was like,
right.
Yours is like love
because
the Lord.
Only if you, he has
I never
loved you
her.
and graced you with his love, can you really love him back?
That's right. And I challenge you this. What can you do to build family? Give us your ideas. You can reach me at Ellen Mongan, wowellen@yahoo.com. You can reach Deacon Pat at
pfmongan@outlook.com.
And we'd love to hear your ideas, how you build family, how you do Lent as a family, and how you care for the elderly when they unexpectedly knock on your door and say, here I am. I came to join your life. Woo!
Amen.
This is Deacon and Dear. It's Ellen Mongan and Pat Mongan saying, we're traveling along, singing a song, side by side. God bless you.